I'm glad that a great story came out of it. So our next storyteller is a world traveler named Kevin. His story is entitled Red Rug, Blue Rug.
This story takes place in two places. The first is Damascus, Syria in the early 1990s, before 9/11, before everything that's going on there now. Damascus has been around since the dawn of time. It's part of the Fertile Crescent. It's the end of the Silk Road. It's an ancient place. I was there teaching U.S. history at an American school, and so the Syrians would ask me, like, Kevin, what are you doing here? And I'd say, well, I teach U.S. history. They'd say, oh, are you done in like 20 minutes? Because it's so tiny, so short. And I'm like, well, it's like our movies. It's short, but it's action-packed. There's like a lot going on there. Because Damascus has been around since the dawn of time, and it doesn't really have a lot of natural resources, its business people got very good at negotiating or haggling or bargaining or whatever you would like to describe that. There's a whole technique to it that involves tea, like sitting around for an hour, looking at atoms, talking about your family and their family. And I never really quite understood it because it really, frankly, confused me. I'm not really a shopper, but my friend, Emmy David, was. Emmy David was married to Kevin David. They were from Iowa. They were like Iowa farm people. And Emmy's plan was, in her 2 years in Damascus, to buy a tremendous amount of stuff, like a lot of rugs, a lot of pearl inlaid furniture, many, many things to fill up like 5 Iowa farmhouses. So she was like my personal shopper for like the 2 or 3 big items I decided to get there. And she taught me about the red rug, what I'm going to call the red rug, blue rug technique of shopping in the Middle East, or at least in Damascus, which is, let's say you particularly like this blue rug right here. We'll go in and negotiate over the red rug right beside it, and haggle and negotiate and go back and forth and take like an hour or two, knowing that you're never going to come to a deal over the red rug. And finally, when the negotiation breaks down and it ends and you know no deal will be made, say just in passing, well, what about this blue rug right over here, just so our time's not wasted, and maybe you get a deal. Cut to Phoenix, Arizona in the 2000s. I'm running around with a bunch of artists and a bunch of performers and a bunch of kind of weirdos. And all of a sudden, I need a car like really quick. And a friend of mine is willing to sell me his car for $200. I'll say that again. My friend of mine is willing to sell me his car for $200. The reason being he's going to move to Guatemala, and he's got a BMW Series 3 diesel car. And way back then, before Tesla, before electronic cars, some of the early kind of weirdo environmentalists were taking old diesel cars and running them on vegetable oil, like used vegetable oil. Like you pull up at the Chinese restaurant at like 2 a.m. and still their vegetable oil, and then that's what you're running your car on. And so the BMW, he was doing this, and the BMW Series 3 car was famous in that circuit for being so over-engineered, so tough, so reinforced with like everything that you didn't even have to tweak the motor at all. You could just pour vegetable oil into it and it would run, according to my friend. This is the type of car that originally, when it first came out in the 80s, was so tough that the KGB bought like 2,000, reinforced it with bulletproof glass, and drove Gorbachev, around at parades and things. And so most people would clean their vegetable oil or filter it before they put it in there. Not my friend. It was like, this car, the Russians liked it, it's tough enough. Once I had the car and he was in Guatemala, I realized that he didn't really drive that much. He was like an artist. He worked at home before working at home was a thing, and he would drive maybe to the grocery store once a week, maybe to an art opening, never more than 8 blocks away, never more than 15 miles per hour. And I'm driving like a 40-minute commute on a highway. This car was ridiculous. I got 4 separate complaints from Maricopa County that Phoenix is in, where someone had called Maricopa County and said, there's so much black, ugly smoke coming out of this car. I'm calling in, taking time to pay attention to his license plate and calling in and reporting it to you. They didn't know that it was, clean energy. So it kind of sometimes get to like 40 miles per hour if I was going downhill. The worst part of this car is that it like stalled every single time I came to a complete stop. Which in Phoenix isn't that tough when you're going like 15 miles per hour because each street is like a mile long, so you can kind of like time the lights. But it would stall every single time I stopped. I called my friend. I was like, what's up with this? He's like, oh, yeah, that's because the vegetable oil is gooking up this thingamajiggy. So what you got to do is you got to turn the ignition in halfway and let it warm up, and then turn it off and let it warm up again. And then you'd like give it one big thing and just hit the gas really hard. And then, and there was like 3 other steps I don't remember. So this got worse and worse and worse. And finally, like, man, I need a real car. So the first time in my life, I go to a dealership, a Honda dealership. I'm going to buy a used car. I do my research. I look, figure out what used car will fit what I want for the monthly payments. And as I'm pulling into the parking lot, like as I take the right into the parking lot, the car stalls, and I drift into a parking space. And I know this car this well at this point. They're like, this car is never starting again. I am buying a car today. So myself and the salesman, we walk the lot. I pick 2 used cars I like, one that's about 5 years old, one that's about 7 years old, for, again, these monthly payments I want. And we negotiate. And we negotiate. And every time we negotiate, he goes to his boss in a little room and they talk and, they come back. You know the routine. And most of the negotiation is on the trade-in value of the BMW that I've drifted into the parking lot. And in this salesman's cubicle, on the wall, he had graduated from Honda Sales University 1 week prior. He was kind of new to the job. I don't know if they teach at Honda Sales University, but maybe not the price of BMW diesels, because he kept negotiating up and up and up. And I'm going from memory here. I think I got $14,000 trade-in value for that car. At least $12,000, right? It was 12 to 16, somewhere in there. And we negotiated over the car that was 5 years old, and we never got to the monthly price I wanted, the monthly payment I wanted. So we haggled, and we never got to that price. Finally, the negotiation breaks down, and I'd say, well, what about the one that's 2 years older? And because we've already negotiated the trade-in value, that sticks, and I get it. And as I drove away out of the parking lot in my brand new used Honda Civic, I thought I unintentionally pulled off the red rug, blue rug. I was so proud of myself. The next day, I had to go back to sign some more paperwork that we had forgotten to sign. And the salesperson came up to me and he said, your car? We couldn't start it at the end of the day. And myself and the rest of the sales force had to push it into the back lot. And now they're all calling me Fry Guy. And I told him that I was very sorry to hear that. Thank you.